My name is Mick, and welcome to my new YouTube channel, Moody Still Groovy. Again, I'm Mick, M-I-C-K, not Nick, kind of like Mickey Mouse, but minus the E. Pardon the crows. I'm 18 years old. I use she, her pronouns. I'm an artist. I love to learn. I love to read. And I have bipolar disorder. That's why I'm starting this channel. I want to raise awareness to this oftentimes misunderstood diagnosis. I personally have bipolar 1 disorder, and I am actively seeking treatment. I am currently living in a 24/7 supervised residential facility, which is essentially a step down from a hospitalization. I'm sure I'm going to get more into that in another video, but for today's video, I just kind of wanted to set the groundwork for bipolar disorder. I'm going to be going over in this video the main characterizations of bipolar disorder. I will be speaking on 2 of the 4 types of bipolar disorder, bipolar 1 as well as bipolar 2, and just kind of going over some general misconceptions that people tend to have about this disorder. So to start off, there's a lot of people you probably know with bipolar disorder. Not only does it affect 2% of the population, with around almost 3%, with around 83% of cases being diagnosed as severe or needing medication, treatment in order to be a happy, healthy, functioning human. Bipolar folk are also known to be quite creative. In fact, you probably have heard of some of these names. Jimi Hendrix, Carrie Fisher, Demi Lovato, Ernest Hemingway, gosh, there's so many. Kurt Cobain, all of them struggled with bipolar disorder. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that if you're bipolar, you're going to be like this crazy, amazing artist. It just means there's a tendency for creative juices to flow. A lot of us tend to be artists, or into the arts at least. So the main characteristics of bipolar disorder can be broken down into 3 fairly simple segments: manias, hypomanias, and depression. A mania is characterized as an elevated mood state. This can manifest in many different ways for many different people, and of course not all bipolar people experience a mania in the same exact way. Some manias are more euphoric, which is what people tend to kind of picture when they picture a bipolar person. This means somebody will be talking fast, they're going to be excitable, poor impulse control, they'll be the life of the party. People tend to really like people when they're starting off with a manic episode, the beginning of it. However, it quickly can lead to an uncomfortable high level that a person no longer has control over. This can cause poor memory recollection. From personal experience, I have completely blacked out during some of my manias and have no recollection of what I have done. That might not be the same for everyone, of course, but that's a personal experience of mine. Manias also oftentimes lead to a person no longer sleeping, no longer eating, out of a belief that they just don't need to. Some manic episodes, as they are referred to, include psychosis, which isn't as scary as it sounds, I promise. It is scary and should be taken seriously, but that doesn't mean that we're out to hurt anyone. Psychosis can manifest in different ways for many different people. Psychosis can present as people seeing or hearing things that are not actually there. It can develop out of paranoia, thinking someone's always out to get you, or looking over your shoulder constantly because you think somebody's going to be there, or that all eyes are on you all the time. For some, this manifests as a God complex, where they feel as if they are legitimately God, or where they feel as if there is no harm or consequence that can come to them. In a mania, people are known to recklessly spend their money thinking they have more than they actually do, be more sexually promiscuous, known as hypersexuality, take more unnecessary risks, as well as make drastic life decisions, such as quitting a job and trying to start a new company, or taking the whole family on this very expensive vacation that they just didn't have the money for. In order to be considered a mania or a manic episode, the episode must last for at least 7 days, according to the DSM-5. I know not everyone agrees with the DSM-5, but that's just how it's laid out for now. And manias can also manifest in more irritable ways, where somebody is very irritable, very sensitive, has disorganized thought, disorganized ways of presenting these thoughts. They'll usually talk very, very fast, maybe not making eye contact, looking all over the place like that, and similar instances. A hypomania, on the other hand, is a lesser version of a mania, not to say that it isn't impactful. However, generally there's less destruction during a hypomanic episode. This is usually what folks with bipolar 2 will experience. A person with bipolar 2 disorder will never experience a manic episode unless their bipolar 2 shifts into bipolar 1, such as mine. A hypomanic episode is usually more socially acceptable. These people usually do very well at work, social life, with friends. They're seen as very upbeat and happy. However, that doesn't mean that poor decisions won't still be made during a hypomanic episode, or that there isn't some harm that could happen. So, to recap, a mania has to last for 7 days, or be severe enough to require hospitalization. It is usually more intense. It can include psychosis, disorganized thought, disorganized ways of presenting thought, very upbeat, very go, 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 very I want to do this thing, I want to do that thing, I want to do all the things, and so on. Hypomania, slightly lesser form of mania. No psychosis will be a part of this episode, and the person generally has slightly less destruction, however, similar to a mania with the disorganized pattern of thinking, disorganized way of speaking, and the higher energy levels. Those are the different mania types in a very brief nutshell. I will go into more detail in a later video. The third component of bipolar disorder is depression. You're probably familiar with depression. Maybe you've experienced it yourself, or you just know somebody who has gone through depression or is currently going through depression. A depression for a bipolar person is quite similar. It can be very intense, however, as most things with bipolar are quite intensified. Usually people who are in a full depressive episode that are bipolar will find it too difficult to even get out of bed to do daily tasks such as brushing teeth, taking a shower, going to work, going to school. There is just little to no energy. People will either have too much sleep occur where they're sleeping all day, or they will have a broken sleep, have a hard time staying asleep, and falling asleep. During a depression, it can be even difficult to make a minor decision, such as what to eat for breakfast or what to wear. Things like that can be very, very difficult. And somebody with bipolar disorder needs to have a depression or depressive episode that lasts for at least 2 weeks every day. Suicide is a risk for any bipolar person through any of the episodes. When you are manic or hypomanic, you may not realize the consequences of your actions. When you are depressed, you feel so low that it seems like the only escape. So suicide is an ever-present danger for those suffering with bipolar disorder. And many people with bipolar disorder will have multiple attempts on their life. This is why we need to end the stereotypes surrounding bipolar disorder, and this is why I'm talking about it. So, those are the three main components of bipolar disorder: mania, hypomania, depression. Sorry, it is very windy outside. Anyways, bipolar 1 disorder is characterized by manic and depressive episodes. There can also be hypomanic episodes with a person suffering from bipolar 1 disorder. Usually a person who is bipolar 1 may experience psychosis, has had repeated hospitalizations, or their disorder is detrimentally affecting their life. Folks with bipolar 2 disorder will suffer from hypomanic episodes as well as depressive episodes. This can still require a hospitalization. However, it is not as frequent as it will be in somebody with bipolar 1 typically. And bipolar 2 disorder by no means is any less significant than bipolar 1 disorder. I just want to make that very clear. You're both suffering from the same illness, it's just they manifest a little differently. Bipolar 1 disorder is characterized by the suffering of manias. Most people with bipolar 1 disorder also suffer with depression. However, an episode of depression is not required for a bipolar 1 diagnosis. For folks with bipolar 2, they oftentimes are more depressed, and they shift between depression and hypomanic episodes. Again, I'm only going over the two kind of main types of bipolar disorder. There are 4 types in total, including cyclothymia or cyclothymic disorder, and bipolar disorder not otherwise specified, and I will definitely be making videos on those in the future. But for today, we're focusing on bipolar 1 and 2. There are many theories behind what causes bipolar disorder, and there isn't one straight answer. We do know that it is a chemical imbalance. However, we don't really know what causes it and why certain people get it and others don't. One theory is genetics. There is research into this that shows that those suffering from bipolar disorder oftentimes have a relative that has bipolar disorder, maybe a parent or a grandparent. However, this has also been further studied with twins, and an identical set of twins, one may develop bipolar disorder and the other one just won't. So genetics is not the full answer for bipolar disorder. Somebody can develop bipolar disorder and have nobody else in the family have the disorder as well. Another theory is stress. I know that sounds kind of funny, but a stressful event such as the death of a family member, a severe illness, a difficult relationship, divorce, financial problems, etc., can influence a person's likelihood to develop bipolar disorder. And the last kind of theory, I suppose, is the brain structure and function. Brain scans cannot diagnose bipolar disorder. However, researchers are learning more and more every day, and they are finding that the brains of people who suffer from bipolar disorder are structurally different than those who do not suffer from bipolar disorder. So, yeah. There's also theories as to it being a hormone imbalance. Typically, bipolar disorder presents itself around age 25. It can be recognized in older teenagers, and it is rarely recognized in children. However, children can exhibit behaviors of bipolar disorder. So there's a lot that goes into this disorder, essentially, and as a result, there's a lot that goes into the care and maintenance of this disorder. Bipolar disorder folk typically benefit from being on medication, from psychotherapy, and having a customized care treatment plan, as well as health implements, I suppose. It doesn't replace treatment necessarily. However, it is helpful when you're in a more elevated mindset to do intense physical exercise to tire yourself out more likely and hopefully prevent the onset of a manic episode. It is just also nice to be healthy in general. Not to mention that folks with bipolar disorder oftentimes suffer from multiple mental illnesses such as anxiety, ADHD, PTSD, dual diagnosis. Many people who are bipolar are also dually diagnosed with a substance disorder. Not all, of course, but many, as many of us are trying to recreate that manic high. And so certain substances do get the job done, um, as well as medication management. It is very important for bipolar people to manage their medication and talk to their psychiatrist and therapist with what care plan works best for them. I understand that being on medication sucks. I personally hate being on meds, but I do function better when I'm on them, and I like who I am better when I'm medicated. Yeah. So people with bipolar disorder can sometimes be misdiagnosed as having schizophrenia or borderline personality disorder. There are a lot of similar traits between bipolar disorder and borderline personality disorder. However, they are distinct, different disorders. Bipolar disorder is characterized as a mood disorder, whereas borderline personality disorder is characterized as a personality disorder. I will definitely make a video comparing and contrasting bipolar disorder and borderline at some point, as well as going into personality disorders as they are referred to as in the DSM-5. Schizophrenia is misdiagnosed for folks with bipolar disorder if they experience psychosis a lot of times, because when you're experiencing psychosis, it can be similar to what folks with schizophrenia experience. However, there is a difference, a distinct difference, and it is very important to get a proper diagnosis. So now I just want to go over some of the common misconceptions and myths about bipolar disorder and hopefully shed some insight. So there's only one type of bipolar disorder. This is false. There are 4 types of bipolar disorder, as I previously explained. But yeah, there's not only one type of bipolar disorder. People with bipolar disorder often flip between manic and depressive episodes. This is untrue. There are some folks who experience rapid cycling. However, that is very rare. Typically for bipolar disorder, there will be one episode for a length of time. Manic episodes tend to be shorter than depressive episodes. However, some manic episodes can last for a prolonged period of time, especially if there are substances involved and a lack of medication or treatment. There is such a thing as a mixed state, however, which is possibly what people are thinking of when they think of a person being all happy and then really, really sad. A mixed state is usually a very vulnerable time for a person with bipolar disorder, and it is usually not as intense as a manic episode or depressive episode. And typically after manic episodes, the bipolar person will crash into an intense depressive episode. And this is a very vulnerable time after an episode has ended and you fall back into that depressive cycle. Any episode should be taken seriously for someone with bipolar disorder, whether it is a mixed episode, whether it's a manic episode, a hypomanic, or a depressive episode. All are important and should be taken quite seriously. Another myth is that people in manic states are just having fun. This is not true. I can let you know from firsthand experience. It's fun at first, and it quickly becomes something that is no longer fun or in your control. People who are manic need help. They don't need to be encouraged in their ways. They will need to go to a hospital sometimes. They will need to be on their medication sometimes. They will need to be safe, because we won't be able to keep ourselves safe when we're manic. Our impulse control and our ability to make cognitive decisions is lessened when you're in a manic state. So it's not just all fun and glitter and rainbows. It's hard, and oftentimes there are detrimental effects after a manic episode has ended. So helping somebody in the beginning of a mania can help save many parts of their life. Yeah. People with bipolar disorder are not only manic or depressed. With proper med management as well as psychotherapy, people with bipolar disorder can definitely experience stability and a more stable mood set for months, weeks, years even. So it's not only mania depression, it definitely can become something that is stabilized. And however, this leads to another myth that once somebody has reached a stable state, they can stop taking their medication like that and they're cured. Bipolar disorder cannot be cured. It is a chronic, sometimes an episodic disorder. Chronic just means that it is with you for life, and episodic means it'll pop in and out of your life. Usually this is, med management can make it more episodic, as you will hopefully experience more and more stability and stable mindsets. I know I'm talking about medication a lot, and that's just because personally I have found that I am a bipolar person who needs to be on their medication. That doesn't mean it's the only treatment for bipolar disorder. It is most of the time included in the treatment and management of bipolar disorder, and there's no shame in taking your medication, I can assure you. There's no shame in that. However, with a psychotherapist, proper management of your external body, such as healthy sleep habits, healthy eating habits, and healthy social habits, and stress management, can all play into helping your bipolar disorder. Peer support and familial support is wildly beneficial and definitely helps improve the condition of someone suffering from bipolar disorder. Alright, another myth is that artistic or creative people should not manage their medication as it'll stunt their creativity. This is not true. I am on medication and I am still doing my art, I'm still writing, I am still creating things as often as I can. Just because you're on medication doesn't mean you're going to lose that creative spark that you have, maybe because of your bipolar or just because of who you are. That creative spark is still going to be there, and if anything, for me, it's just a little bit more cognizant now. It's a little bit clearer when I write. It's a little bit crisper lines when I draw. I understand kind of more so what I'm doing, and so I have a more polished product in the end. Creative people can still be creative when they're on medication and they're bipolar. Your creative spark will not go away, I can assure you. It might feel a little different at first, but it'll come back. Another myth that I really want to address is that bipolar people are dangerous or violent. Statistically, this is just not true. People who suffer from mental illness are 2.5 times more likely to be the victims of violence rather than the perpetrators. And people with bipolar disorder will more oftentimes harm themselves before they harm anyone else, including self-harm or suicide attempts. Of course, not to say that doesn't mentally harm others, but we're not going to physically harm you. We don't want to. Our head is what causes us the most pain, and therefore ourselves are what cause us pain. The odds of us taking it out on someone else are minimal, and yeah, we're not dangerous, we're not violent, we're just people. We're just struggling with some really intense emotions. Another myth is that people who are bipolar are not going to be able to hold down a relationship or a family or a steady job. This isn't true. Many of us are very, very loving. We feel things so intensely. And with proper management of whatever your individualized care plan is, as well as support from your family to create an environment that is safe and one that you can thrive in, bipolar people can definitely hold down amazing jobs and have wonderful, healthy, beautiful families. A lot of us have a very strong work ethic, and we definitely can hold down a job. We just might need to take some extra precautions compared to somebody who doesn't have bipolar disorder. And the final myth is that family members can do little to help someone suffering from bipolar disorder. This is not true. In fact, family support is one of the biggest things that you can do for somebody with bipolar disorder. Being involved in treatment, as well as listening to the person suffering from bipolar disorder's needs and wants, Families can do so much for those suffering with bipolar disorder. Their support and love in a patient-centered support can do wonders, and it is oftentimes proven to improve treatment outcomes. So there you have it. We're just people. We just experience mood shifts, and that's okay. We can manage them. We can live healthy, happy lives. And there's so much more to talk about, but that's a basic layout of Bipolar 1 and Bipolar 2, as well as hopefully debunking some of the stereotypes around bipolar disorder. We are not what you see in the media. A lot of times media portrayal is horrid of bipolar disorder. We are just people. I can't say it enough. We just want love, care, and support. I hope this video finds you well during these trying times, and know that there is services that you can seek out even while quarantined. I will link some down below for anyone who is looking for some extra help, and just know that you are not alone. Around 10 million Americans suffer from bipolar disorder. There's a lot of us out there, and if you're just coming to terms with your bipolar disorder, just know that I love you. I'm here for you. I understand that fear. You're gonna be okay, and you're gonna get through this. And for everyone who's watching to just educate themselves, thank you for listening, and I hope this video finds everyone well. Stay safe, stay inside, and leave a comment if you have an idea for a next video. And yeah, bye!